Hello, everybody. I actually have a product that I'm going to review today. It's not a physical product, it's a program which is perfect for tax season. It is Credit Karma Tax. And I want to start out first by saying I am not being paid by Credit Karma. I have no affiliation with them or partnership or anything. This is not a paid advertisement. It's just, I know a lot of people, including myself, were probably apprehensive about using a new program for their taxes because it's never been out before. It was brand new this year. And I was very apprehensive too. I've always used TurboTax, and I figure I actually got on their early waiting list to use Credit Karma several months ago. And when I got the email, it was like, okay, I'll go ahead and try it. So I did, and I figured my experience may help others make their decision whether or not they want to use it. So let's get into it. First of all, I'll say the main reason I wanted to try it was because it was free, and the others are not. So, well, they do have their free, sort of. It just depends on how you file. But I would say for majority of people, it's probably not free. You're gonna have to pay something. But Credit Karma, completely free, no matter what. So that's the number one thing that I really liked about it. I will say there were a couple things I didn't like as much that were kind of annoying that I hope they improve for next year. First of all, if you have a Credit Karma account, like most people probably do, just to check your credit scores, the tax portion is separate. So you actually have to do a whole new, sort of like a new account within the account to use the tax part, and you're gonna have to sign in separately to do that, and that's fine. That's no big deal. But the problem is every time I would go to I did my taxes on my laptop. Every time I would go and sign in, it would say it didn't recognize my device. So I would always have to send a code to my phone, and then it would send it back, and then I would have to like put the code in and all that. So to verify my computer, and it did that every single time, and it was very annoying. But hopefully they get that fixed, or maybe not. I don't know if it's just a really strict security thing that they have. I don't know, but regardless, it was kind of frustrating. Um, Other than that, the other thing, the questions seemed a little vague sometimes when you're going through. You can either choose like really basic or more detailed questions where you enter more things manually. I actually did it both ways just to kind of compare, and some of the questions were a little confusing the way that they were worded, and it wasn't a big deal. I mean, now that I've gone through it, I understand everything, and I've always done my own taxes ever since I've had to file taxes out of high school. So I've always been able to do it. I've done it, on paper. I've done it online. I know how to do my taxes. This was a little confusing at times. It wasn't a big deal, but now that I've done it, next year I can fly through it and no big deal. So they were a little vague. They were not as detailed and upfront as TurboTax. The other thing too is I have a full-time job, and my company pays into my health savings account on top of my insurance. So I have a health insurance, but I also have an HSA, which is pretty common. And I don't pay into it myself. My company does. So if it is on my W-2, and when you're putting in your all of your entries for the W-2 on Credit Karma, there is a section that for that. So you have to put in the income that you had for the HSA and all that, blah blah blah. As I'm going through and like getting ready to actually file my taxes, I noticed there was this entry for what it classified as was just other income, and I had no idea what that was. It was like, I don't remember putting that in, because when you put in your W-2 information, you do that at the very beginning, and then everything else towards the end. So I had no idea what this other income was, and it was really frustrating, and I kept going back through and like redoing everything, and I actually redid my entire tax return twice, just trying to figure out what this other income was. And then I realized it was the HSA income. For some reason, they classify it as other. They don't really, and there's no way to tell what that other income is unless you go all the way back and realize that's the amount that you put in for your HSA. And I was thinking, okay, well, what if it's not being figured right? What if they're doing it something wrong? So I actually did my entire tax return on TurboTax just to kind of compare, and or at least just that part of the tax return on TurboTax, and it did actually figure it correctly on Credit Karma. So I don't know if that's a glitch or if that's just how they're going to do it, but regardless, it was a little confusing, and I didn't like that. I wish that it would have been labeled as HSA income. That way, I wouldn't have wasted several hours trying to figure out what that was. But just something to keep in mind if you have HSA income, that is going to be labeled as other when you review your federal return on Credit Karma. Now, if you are like me, I have, like I said, a full-time job, but I also have self-employment income, which is YouTube. So, obviously I don't make a lot on YouTube, but I make enough to where I have to file it on taxes. And because of that, if I were to use TurboTax, I would be paying $126.98 to file my federal and state taxes this year. Now, just by not using TurboTax and using Credit Karma, I didn't have to pay anything. So I saved $127, and that's the main reason I went ahead and used Credit Karma. So I was really happy with it. Overall, I don't have any major complaints. There were just a few little issues, which I don't know if it's the way that they're going to keep it or if it was a glitch. It could have been either one. I don't know. But regardless, I went ahead and filed yesterday. Everything turned out fine. My federal tax return was accepted by the IRS within minutes. And my state hasn't been accepted yet, but that always takes, a few days. So, no big deal. I'm sure it'll turn out fine. Bottom line, I would definitely recommend using the Credit Karma tax program. It worked out good. The questions were a little sketchy here and there, but I think it's just something that needs to be kind of fixed over time, being that it's the first time that they've ever done it. I mean, imagine that if this was the first time TurboTax ever existed. I'm sure that they had some issues at the beginning too, so it's not a big deal. It was a good program. I would definitely use it next year. I'd recommend everyone try it out. I know a lot of people, they want to stick with what they've used in the past, which is fine. I understand that, but I've always used TurboTax, like I said. But this year, I'm not going to pay $127. I'm going to save $127 by getting the same refund that I would have gotten regardless. So overall, I like it. It's a good program, and that's all I have to say about it. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and thanks for watching.